Hi, Mark. Welcome to the show.
Hi, it's good to be here, all the way from the south of France to Canada.
Wow,
But
you're in France.
technology is crazy, isn't it?
It's great. And I'll have to find out what you're doing in France. You are an American citizen, right?
Yes, I moved here about 8 years ago. And I can't say an old girlfriend, ex-girlfriend. We were friends at that point, and she always wanted to retire in France. So I came to visit France with her a few times, and then she found this little village. It's called Pézenas, and it's in the southwest part. And they say Molière was born here. Not the writer, well, the writer, not the actual man. He came to Pézenas and became Molière and wrote a couple of his big plays. And it's a village filled with artists of all kinds. And it's just really cool. It's 8,500 people. And it's like a 16th century is, I think, the majority of the village. It's got architectural, political, and art history, and it's just a really cool, creative place. And I visited here for 5 days and said this will be my home. And then I moved about 2 years later.
Wow.
Yeah, very
So,
cool.
so
So
besides writing this book that we're going to be talking about, what do you do for a living there?
I don't.
Okay.
I'm officially retired, and I'll say an unofficial wine taster. Um, yeah, I think in the paperwork here, I have to sign a letter saying I will not work in France, meaning I will not take a job from a Frenchman,
Okay.
and that's fine. So I officially, I guess, retired. I still do some design consultation back in the States, and I became a published author. So that's the new career. So that's not taking a job away from any locals here. It was a great place actually to come and write because the subject of my book is for me was quite an emotional thing, and so I couldn't write it for a few years. And then once I got here, I had enough time, and it's just a great place to sit and reflect and write and that this is in this room is where the book was written.
hmm Southern France. It's a dream of many people. Beautiful.
Yes.
I'm glad for you. Your book called A Cup of Tea on the Commode. That won many awards, I see, in 2024, the year that we're talking right now. So it's been out for how long? About a year or so?
Yeah, it was released on Mother's Day last year.
Okay.
And yeah, it's won, which has been very nice. It's won 12 awards so far. And I think a few more are coming, but probably in the year 2025, people are saying, I'm in the running for a few, and they say the results will come out in 2025. So
Okay.
yeah, that's a nice, I guess, feather in the cap.
Sure it is, of course. And you're published by what company?
Right Life Publishing is a spin-off of Boutique Quality Books in the United States. And I guess I was really lucky because, it's very tough to get published these days. I didn't want to self-publish, and so I went after publishers.
Yeah.
And uh, my manuscript resonated with the acquiring editor. And she happened to be from the same part of New York as where my parents were from. So she kind of went down a little memory lane
Mm.
trip, and it really connected with her. So she said, I like it. I have some notes if you're willing to revise it a bit. And her notes were excellent. And again, being a first-time author, it was like, yeah, give me the notes. And so they were very helpful, and I worked with a couple of really good editors for about a year and a half
Good.
to get it ready. And
Wow. So what are sales like for your book?
pretty good. The publisher's very happy. I mean, I want to be selling millions, of course, and I keep marketing it like crazy. But the everybody seems to be pretty happy with it. It comes in a paperback, in large print, and ebook, and also I did the audio book. And the response has been lovely. I mean, the awards are nice. The reviews on Amazon especially have been terrific, and I've been,
Yeah.
I guess, really going after people saying, you got to keep. If you read the book and enjoy it, please write a review because they help spread the word. And so people have been obeying me pretty well. And the response from my hometown in New Jersey has been great because the local newspaper and then the my mom worked for the largest newspaper in New Jersey as a proofreader for like 30 years, and it took
Hmm.
me about a year to get them interested in a story about one of their ex-employees, but they did. And then that writer also wrote an article for my hometown paper, Ridgewood, the Ridgewood News, and then also a magazine that goes out in New Jersey. So we got a lot of mileage out of that particular reporter, which was great. And then now we're getting the Ridgewood Library is going to be doing an event with me over Zoom in February. And so the locals have been great. So that's been very nice. But it's resonated. I've gotten notes from people from around the world, and it's just very cool. You don't know, when you write something, you put your heart and soul into something, whether it's going to resonate with others. And I've been very fortunate with this book. I think it's a kind of a universal story anyway, but people have connected because there's a lot of humor in it. My parents were both pretty funny people.
Hmm.
And luckily, they passed that down to us. There are six kids. And so I wanted to make sure to infuse humor throughout the book. So it's not just a sad tale or anything like that. And so my mom was funny, and I made sure one of my goals was to make her laugh once a day. And so, and she ended up making me laugh quite a bit as well. So it was pretty good.
Good. Well, I did read a bit about what the book's about, and maybe we should get right into it because by now people watching this episode is wondering, so what's this book about? Tell us all about it. So let's get right to the meat of the matter. What is this book about?
Well, I was at the time this happened. I was a carefree bachelor. I had never married, no children, living in Los Angeles, doing the Hollywood thing. But I also had a snack food business that I started with my brother to honor our father, who passed away years earlier. And he invented a snack food, a half pop popcorn snack. And so I was busy doing that probably about 12 or 13 years at this point. And my brother in New Jersey called. Our mother was living in the house we all grew up in, and she just turned 89. And we had people living in the house upstairs on the second floor. We made kind of an apartment up there, and they were overseeing household duties. At that point, my mom could still take care of herself, but we needed help with the cooking and the cleaning and laundry and things like that. And so we hired a family up there, and apparently there was a lot of tension between my mom and this family. And my mom was not happy, and she kind of went into, I think, a deep depressive state. She had bouts of depression, I guess, throughout her life, but this was a real deep one. And she kind of just gave up and wanted to, I guess, go. She said, I think it was like, if this is going to be the end of my life, I'm done. I'm out of here. So my brother called up and said the doctor cut off all meds and food, and hospice was called. And so all of us, so the six kids all came home. We were on death watch, and we had a priest deliver the last rites. And I said my mom was kind of in a semi-comatose state. She didn't open her eyes. Very infrequently she opened her eyes, but she didn't talk. She didn't move, but she did respond to touch. And I think over a few weeks, she kind of knew her kids were there, and they were bringing, I guess, love that was missing in the house back. And she slowly started coming back. But what we found out when hospice is there, at least in New Jersey, they're contracted for usually, well, when they come, usually it's not a good ending. But they are contracted to stay at least 6 months, or maybe maximum 6 months. And so my younger sister and I hung out with hospice and learned as much as we could because we didn't know how long mom was going to be with us. So we wanted to do as much as we could for her. So we learned the tips and tricks from hospice, and one of us always stayed in the room with her, and sometimes we slept in her bed with her, just in case. And but we had since it was going into weeks now, we had quite a revolving door of hospice nurses, and we found out that some of them just don't, they follow their own rules.
Mhm.
And so the directive was no food, no medication. And so we greeted each of the new nurses with the directive from their supervisor at the front door and explained to them what we're doing. And they would nod and go in and do their thing. Well, this one particular nurse said, "Okay, got it." And she walked in and she looked at my mother and said, "Mrs. Porro, are you hungry?" And my mother's eyes shot open like a dinner bell went off. And it was the first time her eyes were that bright in weeks. And then this lady accused us of trying to starve our mother to death, which we took great offense to. And but apparently, as I've done some research and stuff, apparently this kind of stuff does happen. And in our case, that was not what was going on. So we told her to go in and call her supervisor because she broke the rules, and she did. And the supervisor said, "Leave. You broke the rules. You know, we're going to have to send a nurse in." In the meantime, I'm sitting there going, "Wait a minute. Maybe the original assessment was incorrect."
Yeah.
And so I was feeling very guilty. So I went in, and my mother was still awake, and I asked her. I said, "Mom, are you hungry?" And she said, "Well, what do you got?" And those were the first words she spoke in weeks.
Wow.
And I said, "Anything you want." And she said, "Well, how about some pumpkin pie?" Well, it's March at this point. This whole thing started in early February. Now we're into March, and it's not really pumpkin pie season. But my brother was in the living room, and he lived pretty close by. And so I said, "If you want to take this on, go get some pumpkin pies." And he took on the challenge. And by some small miracle, he came back with two pumpkin pies.
Sure.
And so the first mouthful she spit out because that was the first food in the week. So I said, "Well, that didn't go so well, but let's try again." And the second spoonful was success. And then she downed half the pie. And she was back. She was alert. She was awake. And the color came back into her face. And it was great. And so the next day she down another half a pie. And then the next day, I think she downed the entire pie. And then she moved on to sherbet, 8 bowls of sherbet a day,
Wow.
and then on to sugary oatmeal. So we slowly got her into proper food, but she was back. Our mom was back and full of energy and stuff. And we realized, she might be riding the greatest continuous sugar high in the world, but
Wow. Yeah.
we weren't going to change her thing. She's 89 and mom is back. And so we let her have whatever she wanted. And then eventually we moved on to some good food and stuff like that. So that was how it began. And then
Amazing.
as I stayed there for several weeks, because I realized, mom deserves better.
Hmm.
And I wasn't going to move in right away. I wasn't sure what to do, but I certainly kept an eye on the people who were around her. And then by the end of that year, I decided, and I asked her first if she wanted me to do this, to come back and take care of her and make sure she was safe and happy for the rest of her life. And she said yes. And so by the end of the year, the decision for me was easy, but working out the logistics because I was still living in Los Angeles and I had a business there. I was acting for years, but my acting career at that point, I say I was aging out because
Hmm.
things were getting slow. I was in my mid 50s and stuff like that. So I didn't really worry about the acting career so much, but I did have this snack food business that I had to go back to LA every few months just for a week at a time to keep that thing alive.
Yeah.
Um, but that's how it began. So my first child was this 89-year-old, grumpy, stubborn as all get out mom.
Yeah. How long did your mother live after that?
About 3.5 years.
Okay.
So she had a good run. It's sad and sweet, I guess, in a way, but we had a lovely time.
That's nice.
It was, it had ups and downs, and me being a first-time parent, it wasn't perfect. But she trusted me, and it was my first time, I guess, having someone's life in my hands, and I wasn't going to let her down. I wasn't going to let my 5 siblings down, and I think at least for me, once I made that commitment, it was a lot. It was easy because I said I'm in this thing, And one of my mottos, I've had a pretty adventurous life, and whenever I've gone into a new adventure, I always look for the joy. So find the joy is something that I follow, and it just makes everything so much easier. So I put it into that and said, so I'm going to find joy in this, and it made it so much easier. And my mother was a trooper, and uh, it was a good ride. And so the adventures are told in the book. So.
What made you write a book like this as opposed to a memoir, which would include stories about this, but you wrote specifically about this period of your life? How did you decide to do that?
Well, there's a lot of backstory in it as well. So it really is, I think, a memoir, and the structure of that was something that I think was the most difficult thing for me because if I just told this story chronologically, it wouldn't be all that, I guess, exciting. So I weaved in backstories that
Mm,
helped, I think, justify why I took the actions that I did
okay.
because my upbringing was very important to that. This was the right thing to do for a son to take care of his mom. I had a good relationship with both of my folks, and we grew up in a nice, a good, nurturing home. My dad always taught us to care for others and think about others, and my mom was the same way. My mom was especially attentive to animals. So we learned how to care for mice and I guess even fish, but every kind of furry animal you could have, we had in our house at one point. And sometimes we had many at the same time. And we learned how to take care of them and watch the miracle of birth. And unfortunately, the other end of that too, with some of these animals. And I think a lot of that just kind of prepared us, or at least prepared me for taking this job on. And but I always I have a knack for I don't know for the real reason, I guess, but for recording family history. And in this particular case, since I was there 24/7, I was privy to a lot of really special moments and some very special conversations that the rest of my family members were going to miss. And I didn't want them to miss that. I wanted them to enjoy some of these things as well. And so that was the main motivation for writing the book, just recording family history. And from my writing background in Hollywood and stuff like that, I always kept notes anyway. Years earlier, when my dad was going, I only had 8 days with him, but I just instinctually took notes. And the next book that I'm working on is going to focus more on my dad. And I'm so glad I have those notes because now he's been gone over 25 years, and those notes are just reigniting all these memories, which are fabulous. So I'm so glad I did that. Again, I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it other than record these notes for myself and to share with family. But while I was doing this with my mom, I had some friends who were going through it or about to go through it with their folks. And so I shared some of what I was doing and what I learned from hospice, and they seemed to get some benefit out of it. So I thought, I think I got something here that people can, whether I don't really call it a how-to book, but it's what I did book. And if they get something out of it, great. If nothing else, they'll be entertained. But I think it was something that I think was important to share with others besides the family.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm sure there's a lot of that going on. But in your case, there are six siblings. The other five, are they married with children? Did they not have the time to be able to invest like you did?
Well, all have been married. I think I'm the only one who wasn't. My oldest sister is single now. She was a long time divorcee, but uh, my oldest brother, a lot of this was on his shoulders because he lived about 20 minutes away. But every morning he would stop in to check on my mom, and every evening he would do the same. And when this thing happened, he would jump in as well. And then when I decided to take over, he would still come on Tuesday nights. We called it Tuesday nights with Mike, and he would cook dinner, and then he would get mom prepared for bed. So that would be the sponge bathing and get her on the commode and all that business. Other than that, I did it all the other days and did all the cooking and stuff like that. So he wanted to stay in practice, which was great. My youngest sister lived in Michigan. She had 5 kids, and she stayed a number of weeks in the beginning, and then she had to get back to her own family and her own business. She and her husband had a design firm in Grand Rapids. But whenever she came to visit, she would jump in and help me, which was great. And my oldest sister, who lived in California, when I had to go out to LA to work on the business for that week, she would fly in and take care of my mom for that week. And so we always had one of us with my mom for those 3.5 years, which was great.
Yeah.
The other two were hands off. They were not comfortable in doing any of the diaper changing or sponge bathing the mother, and which was fine because you got to find, I guess, your wheelhouse.
Hmm.
And if they weren't going to be comfortable, my mother was not going to be
Yeah,
comfortable.
of
And
course.
you got to put that stuff aside. And so they helped in other ways, which was great because they were so good and supportive of me taking on this role. And there was no friction about, oh, who's in charge or any of that kind of stuff. They were great.
Yeah.
And they trusted me and they knew my mom trusted me. And after I took over, I did some things to, I guess, reassure everybody. My mom, the wardrobe she had kind of looked like old ladies' clothes, and I didn't want my mom looking like a little old lady. So I bought a new wardrobe for mom. That was one of the first things I did. And if you want to cheer someone up at any age, especially
Yeah.
a lady, a new wardrobe will do that.
You bet.
And then yeah, I grew up with 3 sisters, so I knew how to take care of girls' hair and things like that.
Nice.
And I learned more than just having to put the toilet seat down
Hmm.
with the girls. So I took some special care with my mom, getting her hair fixed up and painting her nails and giving her a little touch of lipstick and things like that. Because I learned during this, I call it my adventures or my journey, that feeling pretty doesn't disappear at any age, And I started this thing I called Day of Beauty, and I think maybe a lot of this caregiving falls on the daughters or the wives in the family, but the guys are catching up, and I think my technique was a little more of a romantic approach. So. My mom, again, she had 6 kids and she worked full time, but she treated herself once a week to a trip to the beauty salon where she got her nails done and got a shampoo and a set. And I knew that was a special treat for her. And whenever she visited me in LA, I took her to my friend Stan Penner's place in Beverly Hills for the movie star treatment. And I knew she loved that. But at this point, I didn't know when the last time she was at a beauty salon, and I didn't care for I guess the way her hair looked and stuff like that. So I created a thing called Day of Beauty, which I did the beauty salon treatment at home, and I normally gave her two sponge baths a day in the morning and getting her ready for bed at night. But during Day of Beauty, I soaked her feet in Epsom salts and I shampooed her hair and did her nails and gave her a little lipstick and then let her choose her wardrobe. And so she got the new wardrobe on. And then I blow dried her hair and put it in a ponytail and or braid for some bonus points. And I didn't think that much of it. I just said, this is a nice thing to do for a son to do for his mom.
Yeah.
So after she was done, I put her in the wheelchair and I was wheeling her into the kitchen for breakfast. And we passed by a big mirror that we had in the dining room. And I parked her in front of that mirror and I leaned in and I said, "Who's that pretty girl?" And she just beamed. And it was just beautiful.
It is.
And I don't know, the last time she looked in a mirror. I don't know when the last time she looked in the mirror and liked what she saw.
Yeah.
But whatever she saw that day, she was very happy. And that's when I realized that little gesture. I didn't think that much of it, but boy, it was powerful. And
Wow.
it was infectious because everybody saw her. And now she's again feeling beautiful. And so I parked her in front of that mirror every morning, even between days of beauty, and just asked her, "Who's that pretty girl?" And it was very cool.
Really cool. What a beautiful love story. So those 3.5 years kept you busy. And at what point did you think, I think I want to write a book about this?
Well, I took notes from the beginning. And again, I wasn't sure it was going to be a book. I just wanted to record stuff for the family.
Yep.
And it wasn't until I think when I helped some friends and they seemed to get some benefit from what I said. And I said, okay, now I think it's going to be a book. And whenever I couldn't do a lot of it, I took the notes, but I couldn't really get into sitting down and writing it because it was too hard. My mom passed in 2014, and even writing years later, I'd get to I'm a crybaby. I'm a very emotional guy, especially when it comes to family. And I'd get to points and I'd say, thank God I'm alone because this is embarrassing. And but once I decided it was going to be a book and memoir was going to be the genre, then I had to study that because I wrote jokes and screenplays and stuff like that in Hollywood. But a book was a new thing to me. So I studied the memoir and had a good memoir coach and took classes and then read a bunch of memoirs and got a good idea of what I was going to do. And just started writing away. And then when I decided to weave in the backstories, again, that structure was very difficult. And that's where I think the publisher and the editors and I worked together because I wanted to make sure. For me, sometimes it would make sense, but for a new reader or a fresh set of eyes, it wouldn't. So their advice was
Yeah,
invaluable to me,
absolutely.
and it seems to have worked pretty good because most people uh, respond very positive to it. And what's lovely is that the people from my hometown are great because they go down a trip down memory lane, which is fun. And there's a lot of people I haven't been in touch with for decades, and they're finding out about this book. Part of it, with from my marketing and stuff like that. But some of them knew my parents and said lovely things about my siblings and my folks that I didn't know, or certainly if I forgot if it's like 50 years ago. So those are really fun. So the personal notes that I've gotten are just amazing and really touching. And I get it, those are definitely a gift to me. You put your heart and soul into something, you hope it resonates, and then when it does, it's just amazing.
I take it that picture on the cover is your picture of your mother.
Yes, in fact, that was. It's interesting when you do something, and I guess it's good for the world or the universe. The universe seems to support it. So I knew what I wanted to do with the daisies are my mom's favorite flower, and so I wanted those, and those are in the background of the cover. And then a couple of weeks before I guess I had to work on the cover. My sister, out of the blue, sent me some pictures of my mom,
Hmm.
and that picture was included.
Okay.
And in the beginning of the book, the beginning of our journey, my mom had some visions. She had a bit of dementia, and she had this one recurring one. And it's the only one that kept coming back, and it was this parade of young children who marched down we grew up in a dead end, or we like to call it a cul-de-sac. And she'd be looking at her bedroom window, propped up in her hospital bed, and she would see this parade of kids marching down our street and stopping and waving to her. And they were carrying balloons and flowers, and some with bouquets, some single stem. And she would describe in great detail this parade. And at first, I was a little concerned because I asked her if anybody was asking her to join her, meaning this could be it. And she said, "Oh no, not." And I'm going, "Okay, good." And she would see this thing, and they were all dressed like they just got out of church. And then out of the blue, so I wanted that to be a bookend, that vision to be a bookend for for my book. So in the beginning, it's my mother's vision, and at the end of the book, I don't want to ruin the ending, but after mom passes, um, I see that parade for the first time, and at the anchor of that parade is that little girl on the cover of the book because it's my mom at maybe the most happiest time of her life as an 8-year-old girl holding her flowers
Wow.
and marching off to heaven. And Carol, just out of the blue, that thing came, and I said, "Oh my gosh, that fits so perfectly." And I don't know if I ever saw that photo as a kid. I don't recall it at all, but it just fit so perfectly with what I was doing in the book. So that was, yeah, I don't know, serendipity or whatever. It was just a freaking miracle, I think.
How long is your book?
It's 320 pages, but there's like 20 pages of photos.
Yeah.
My publisher, I asked them, can I add some photos? And they said, sure. So I sent them a bunch of photos and said, you pick which ones you think should go in. They put them all in.
Okay.
The audio book is 7.5 hours.
Okay.
So that would give, I think, a better clue. So it's a pretty fast
Sure.
read.
So you did the actual audiobook, your
Yeah,
voice?
I set up a studio here in France. And again, I had to thank God for YouTube, man. I had to, I bought all this professional equipment, set up a studio, and actually one of my an extra bathroom that I built during COVID. So put up all the foam and everything,
Yeah.
and YouTube helped me out with all the requirements for ACX and all that business, and
Hmm.
it was quite a chore. But just getting through it was going to be tough because again, even on some of the chapters that aren't emotional, they would just creep up on me somehow, and I would just, oh, I can't do this. So I had to use all my acting skills, I wanted some emotion in it, but not too much. I had to be careful. I did have to change some names of some of the people, like the people who are living in the house
Hmm.
and other people who are involved with my mother's care that I didn't care for very much. So I had to be very careful with them and tone some of that down. But with the siblings, I wanted to write a very honest book, and I was very forthright with certainly me and my experience, and a couple of incidents that they might not be totally happy about. But also, I had some I had a really cool relationship with both of my folks, and being a curious kid, and I guess being the actor and stuff like that, I asked a lot of questions, and I got them to both open up because they grew up in the 20s and 30s, and they didn't talk about feelings. They didn't talk about pain. They didn't talk about emotions and stuff like that. But I got them to both open up individually about things. And I share some of that in the book. And my siblings may not have heard these stories before. A few of them, I know they didn't. So I was not sure how they were going to react. I hope for, because at the end with the acknowledgments, I talk about, I wanted to write an honest book, and I stand by that. And I said that, some people are not going to be happy, but any of those things that may be controversial, it's interesting. Anybody who's read the book, not one person has said a thing about it. The most important thing was the story of me and my mom,
Yeah.
and that's what they focus on, and that was
Sure.
lovely. If
For
people
sure.
brought up, oh, what about that incident?
Yeah.
Then I'd have to rethink it and maybe do some revisions and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
none of that's ever come up.
Would you give a elevator pitch for your book and you could tell people why they should have it and where they could pick it up?
Hi, so I am Mark Steven Porro, the author of A Cup of Tea on the Commode. My multitasking adventures of caring for my mom and how I survived to tell the tale. I was a carefree bachelor at 55, and then I got a call about my mom. And so my life kind of changed because my first child happened to be a 90-year-old, grumpy, stubborn as all get out, yet funny lady who could barely remember my name, my mom. And so my book tells the adventures that we had over a 3.5 year period where my goal was to bring joy and happiness to her final years. And it wasn't always perfect, but I came pretty damn close.
Good. And it's available on Amazon and through your website too, I imagine.
Yes, well, not actually on the website. It's Amazon, Barnes and Noble. It's all over the place. If they Google A Cup of Tea on the Commode. You'll find
They'll
us
find it.
everywhere. I also
They'll
have a
find it.
YouTube channel and all that business.
Yeah,
And
excellent. All right.
so,
Well, Mark, when you finish your next book, look me up. I'll be here next year, God
oh,
willing.
great. Well, I'm not sure if it will be done. Hopefully, it will be done. But yeah, the publishing process takes a little longer.
It
But yes,
does.
I will
Yeah.
definitely look you up.
Okay. Yeah. Looking forward to that. It was
Okay,
a
great.
pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much, John.
You take care, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, and if you like what I do here on Tell Me About Your Book, then I invite you to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and even leave a comment if you wish. And if you are an author, I would sure love to hear from you. Until such time, keep on writing, and remember to be kind to one another.